Hello and welcome everyone. We are thrilled to have you join us today for the special webinar where we will be diving into the highlights and key takeaway from the recent SLS conference. We got an exciting lineup of industry leaders with us to share their insight. Let's get started. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on LRIG website. And thanks to our sponsor, Dynamic Devices, for sponsoring this event. Let's quickly go around our virtual room and introduce our esteemed panelists. Please share your name, company, and your title. Let's start with you, Bob.
Yeah, happy to. My name is Bob Ganser. I currently work at Era Therapeutics, and I'm the VP of Lab Technology here, and really excited to talk all things SLAS with this group.
Olga, you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks for having us on. Olga Seltzer, VP of Automation, and I split my time between two flagship companies, Sale Biomedicines and Harbinger Health.
Rishi, you want to go next?
Yep. Hi, everyone. This is Rishi Mahajan. I lead automation in Protein Expression Sciences Department at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals.
And last, Will.
My name is Will Turman. My experience in lab automation is making custom solutions at Hamilton Robotics and with Ginkgo Bioworks here in Boston.
Thank you everyone for your introduction. And I'm Kalpesh Gupta. I'm Associate Director at Moderna and working in lab automation. With that, let's move to the heart of the discussion. We'll hear from each of you guys that the key highlights and takeaway from SLS conference. You all will get 2 to 3 minutes to give your thoughts. And in audience, please feel free to put your questions, comments in the chat, and we will be happy to take them into consideration with our discussion. Olga, do you want to start?
Absolutely. Although I thought you were going to let Bob go first. So Bob, I'm going to steal some of your thunder.
Go for it.
It was a super exciting meeting. I think this was probably the first time that we've seen everybody back and as many vendors unveiling new technologies, new softwares, and new development. So it was super exciting. It was a packed hall, right? What stood out for me, and we're all looking for different things. So what I'm looking for are any new developments on the cell culture because it's relevant to what we do. I'm also really interested to see any changes or advancements in the acoustic dispensing space, right? And what are the new players, if there are any, if it's changing, any new equipment that's available, right? So it was super exciting to see some movement on that front. And also small devices, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but things like Bionoi, right? Small, compact, easy to use, less expensive, so lower barrier to entry. I think sort of the 3 major areas that I was looking for, and I was super excited to see some instruments on that front.
That was great, Olga. Great start. Bob, let's go from you now.
Yeah, I think we'll spend a lot of time talking about technology, which is what we all get excited about. But as I look back at SLAS 2024, I'm just mostly excited about the community. Like I feel like that for me has been the thing that seems to have changed a lot over the years. One, it's nice to be back in person, right? So it was good to have, I think it was sold out from a vendor side. I think it was a record attendance. So it's always good to see lab automation growing and on display. But I just enjoy running into, the folks on the panel here. I see a lot of familiar names in attendance. Like I feel like the community that's starting to get built up in this space is really driving it forward and helping us to, give voice to those of us in the lab building these things, to build the right partnerships with the vendors. And so that's what I look for. I think, things like the Lab Automators events have really just brought this group together. And then the last thing I will say is I just think Boston was on display, which I really liked. Like, this is LRIG New England, right? So we can be excited about New England's presence, and everybody enjoys San Diego in February, but I think there's something special about having SLAS in Boston and the innovation that happens here and the automation that happens here and just enabling that attendance. So for me, the standout was just really the community that showed up at the event and getting to meet those folks and networking and just seeing our community grow.
That's a great save, Bob. And this is the community, and that's why we are here to discuss all the things we want to do for community. With that, Rishi, you want to take it?
Sure, yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with, Bob and Olga, like on these things. I definitely look forward to SLAS where I could see more people, because it's not just about seeing the technology there, but I learn more by networking and meeting more people. And those events that happen after SLAS are more rewarding in that, because at SLAS, I'm just trying to cover all 400 vendors in those 2.5 days, and even holding them after, they are closing their booth and still talking to them. It gets harder there, but I agree that the community that has built is going beyond SLAS. It's like reflected in LinkedIn also. For example, like first time I saw Bob Cancer was at, I guess, online SLAS, at one of the webinars. And then right away I clicked with him without even meeting him, and now I got a chance only to meet him at SLAS. Like this year I even attended Lab Automator. So I got to brew my network and, talk to those people that I always wanted to see and, grow there. So it's definitely rewarding to spend and invest time there. Doesn't matter how tiring it gets. Sometimes I'm standing up 16 hours in a day at SLAS.
That's great. Thanks, Rishi. Will, it's up to you.
All right. Yeah. I just agree with everybody. That's really nice to see the lab automation community, kind of descend on Boston, and there's a lot of energy there. I don't think I've ever seen SLAS that full, and it's just great to see. And I came to Boston from the West, and it was also good to see some familiar faces coming across the country to kind of meet up with and catch up, and that was really nice. Kind of post the last few years. And I really liked just kind of like, the energy was there. And there's also like, I think familiar vendors were bringing new technology and kind of new approaches. And, you see like lots of plates moving around on different things and, in vertical axes and horizontal axes. And I don't know, it was just great to see kind of the energy and just the innovation that people are kind of bringing to the table. And it just kind of makes your brain start churning about, tying some of those things together. Yeah, it's great.
That's great. Also from the participants, we really want this to be an interactive session. So we really encourage everyone to post their questions in Q&A, and we'll be delighted to take them and discuss in more details. With that, moving forward, we are switching a little bit and we are going to do some quick lightning rounds. And the way we are planning to do that is that we will put some questions and each participants, and to be easier, let's go alphabetic wise. We'll go and they will talk about that topic quickly. With that, my first question, new software. What is the most promising new software you come across in SLS or recently?
All right, so Bob's going first, I guess, B. So I feel bad for you, Will, going last. Maybe we'll go reverse order, every other. Software-wise, so most promising, I don't know, but the one that kind of caught my eye and I found myself playing with was Briefly Bio. So that's the new LLM, kind of taking, protocols and putting it into kind of their format. I think all of us have played with LLMs at this point, and like our minds have turned about how could we integrate this into Lab Auto, and they're starting to do some of that. So that was one that just really stood out to me as like, this is fun, it's new, it was cool. So I enjoyed playing with that software.
Totally stole that one. But fully agree. I think there's going to be so much utility in trying to standardize the content of the SOPs, how they're written. But I think that takes it to the next level as far as translating the work that's being done, the wet lab, the manual workflows, for us to translate it into the automated workflows. I still think like that there's a gap in that conversation. So faster, better iterative cycles on automation, I think, are going to be really enabled by what Briefly is trying to do. So that one stood out to me as well. I really love what Artificial is trying to do as well. And I think, again, Briefly tying into Artificial, there's going to be a lot of pull on each other for data, just in general, right? Data management, data flow, in and out, feeding the robots, work lists, output files, and all of that. So I do feel that there's a lot of utility in what Artificial is building. So I was super excited to see them continue to grow.
I could add like maybe at least 3 more names to that: Ganymede, Synthase, TetraScience. I think in addition to Artificial, like these all are doing things which might be a little bit similar or overlapping. There's no one solution out yet. For example, I think Ganymede is more into connecting the instrument data and scientific data into LIMS and cloud. And Synthase, it helps you build automated methods like with drag and drop, and pulls data into the cloud. And then TetraScience, it essentially makes your data more fair. It helps by parsing and annotating the data. So I feel like there are some of these players who it's good to see that maybe they started around COVID time or around that time, but they are getting stronger. They're still around, and they are increasing their capacities. So I think eventually some of the collaborations or some of these extensions are gonna give us a product which might be one-stop stop for few different things where we could merge the automation and the software perspective like together.
I'm not sure like there's a particular software that I'm like excited about. I mean, there are softwares I'm excited about, but I just like to call out how like vendors seem to be kind of providing interfaces to their devices where previously they haven't. For things like liquid handling, where like you might write an entire laboratory around like a liquid handling method with a few integrated devices. Now it feels like they're taking the approach where they're enabling their devices to be programmed with an API. And then like Rishi mentioned, like anything that we're doing in the lab and the automation like angle is to generate data for science. And so like having like really clean interfaces for programming the robot with an API and then getting the data out into your software systems via things like TetraScience and Synthase and Ganymede that feels like this is kind of coming together to mature quite a bit, and it's just kind of good to see some of those things coming together.
Yeah, I feel like we are not even utilizing instrument data as much as of now. Like I would like to have some simple tool where I could see like a dashboard which is like a tool I'm not like generating in-house, where it provides me statistics of my devices and also be able to easily use AI on those to help me predict the failures on those systems.
So that was great, and thank you participants for bringing that, and also the audience for bringing some question. And one of the questions people ask is that there are so many different vendors, and when you're trying different vendors or you're starting, how you want to build your infrastructure so that eventually you can move to one-stop shop or where it's easier to migrate. Do any one of you want to chime in on that question?
I'm happy to take the first stab at some of it, and then rely on the panelists to fill in what I get wrong. I think Will's answer was probably the best one to the last one. I stole briefly from Olga, but it's this API integration and folks not building devices that are standalone, which I think is really starting to move us forward. Like I do agree that some of the software we should be most excited about is what's behind the scenes on some of these hardware to actually allow us to programmatically execute protocols against them. And then that'll make this question much easier, right? So then it's just all of these, we're never going to have a software vendor that is a one-stop shop for science or automation. I think it's got to be an ecosystem approach. And so the only way you can tie these things together is if they all start to play nice with each other. And the devil's in the details behind the scenes as to like how easy it is to integrate to some of these devices and some of these data sources. And so, leveraging some of what's been out there in the internet and modern software practices in lab automation is going to make it so much easier for us to then do these integrations at scale. So I don't know, that's how I view it. So even any piece of hardware, any piece of software, anything like that we bring into our lab has to work as a part of a cohesive ecosystem for us to even consider it.
That was great, Bob. So thank you guys for keep bringing your questions. We'll answer them. On the second round for lightning, about the scheduler. There are so many schedulers out there. Do you have any thing which got updated or a new scheduler which you think is going to make waves in our industry? And Olga, let's start with you this time.
I think it's a bit of a two-part question. What I saw new was definitely what Automata, or Automata, I'm not sure if anybody knows the correct pronunciation, but that was really cool. Early days, a lot of work to still to be done, but an interesting concept, right? And to maybe layer a little bit on the previous question, not everybody in the lab is able to program, right? So more accessible, no code, easy, lower barrier to entry for the scientists, I think is what going to make automation adoption successful in that community, because even though our community is growing, there's still very few of us, right? I'm not sure what the ratio is of each automation engineer to the number of scientists, but that ratio is probably staggering. So I like what Automata is doing, but I also love, what GBG, right, by Zero with Green Button Go, what they continue to do and improve and develop.
Yeah, I think the trend is continuing there, where all these scheduler companies, they are also building orchestration on top of their scheduling software. So schedulers, they are already like improving every year. Plus everyone is trying to build so that you could control multiple different scheduler instances from your different work cells, plus also trying to integrate with your standalone devices, or using maybe some IoT and other stuff, so that you could see everything in one place. But I don't think we are there yet, but it looks like everyone is working on it. I predominantly use like Solario. I didn't this year spend time to look at everyone's software. I think nothing changes as much every year. So next year I'll spend more time with other people. But Hi-Res is coming with Solario Cloud. Again, the same purpose to kind of put that orchestration on top of the scheduler.
That's great. And thanks, Mike, for giving the actual pronunciation of Automa. Okay, moving forward with that, there are some other discussions. One thing is that any thoughts on some of the software that natively incorporate ML and AI? We saw several of the companies which are directly going into that. And what are the thoughts? Some example is, there is an example of self-proliferate analyst. Any thoughts from panelists?
Go ahead, Will. I think you were up next. Who's got one? You?
I mean, it doesn't take like a very far stretch of the imagination to imagine like a pretty closed loop automation system that leverages you have a hit picking algorithm to reschedule something and fire that away, or you don't have a whole lot of intervention to execute these things. I mean, that's probably it's easy to say something like that, but I'd really like to see that come to fruition. I didn't spend a ton of time investigating like software and software tools while I was there, so I'm sure other people have maybe more involved answers for specific integrations for that. But it seems like this has progressed just insanely fast over the last year or so, and it's going to be really exciting to kind of see how people put this to work.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that I saw anything that incorporated it too natively yet in a real useful way. I imagine we will next year. To Will's point, I think it is something that keeps moving along. AI is certainly top of mind, something that you're hearing all the time, and it came up at like every dinner I was at. And I think that's been one thing that I think societally, but automation included, is just still grappling with exactly how we're going to use these tools.
I was going to say
And no,
exactly that. Sorry, Rishi. We're still trying to figure out what does that really mean? How do we leverage? And what are the benefits to it, right? So I think we kind of need to better understand within the world of laboratory automation, how do we drive that? How does that enable the science? And I think we're getting there, but only then can we start driving the tools to connect those dots together, right? And actually deliver on what we want it to do for us.
There's this really cool workshop at Carnegie Mellon every year called the Nobel Touring Workshop, and it talks about, by the year 2050, could we have a fully autonomous AI-driven lab, and all the way from like hypothesis generation through like result generation. And it's just a one-day thing. In the morning is all AI based, and the afternoon is all like lab based. And 2 years ago, the AI side would have been way behind, and now it's actually the lab automation side that's already way behind on that front. And a lot of it just gets to be, we spend a lot of time talking about driver layers and APIs, and but we still don't have a lab where you can variabilize and run and build bespoke protocols kind of on the fly real easily with the like software stack that we currently have, software and hardware stack, right? So, I think it's, these closed loop systems, I think it's really the ideation to the instrument execution side that's falling further behind than it is actually like the AI data ingestion side of it, has been my take. And that's on us to fix, to be honest.
I think there's tools for languages, like Copilot or something that kind of generates code, kind of reads your mind and kind of ties a lot of things together based on your past code history or open source stuff, which is really interesting. But it feels like a lot of those connections between instruments and data, like those things need to be in place to make that efficient. So you need efficient interfaces to get, instruments to be controlled. Then you need efficient, data interfaces to get it out before I feel like you can kind of tie that together. Which again, like I think maybe we need to get those things in place, and then it becomes clear how to kind of tie that together and feed things back into an automation loop.
I would like to see AI in very like simple stuff. Like for example, in your day-to-day, you are running stuff on work cells, So there are always some little things here and there where the plate is not put correctly, or the plate is sealed at 2 a.m. but you won't know till next day that a couple of valves were like not properly got sealed, because now you have to fix the seal or it start getting stuck. So for example, I saw this lab from Row Biotech, and it was in the video it's showing like it's scanning all those images and using AI to feed the loop that, okay, it's not sealed properly, it'll try again. Or if the plate is, for example, left on a sealer, somebody was manually trying to use it or fixing it, and then it could tell that there is a plate, it won't just crash on it. So even those simple day-to-day things where AI could be utilized, or even there are errors that happen on the liquid handler, which scientists are not like able to read through the lines and figure out like what the issue is. So even if AI is providing solutions right away, it helps a lot, because there are certain number of automation engineers, as Olga said, compared to number of scientists. And many times we are spending time to help scientists with the runtime errors than devoting time to build methods, because even in method writing, it's not low code. You have to spend a lot of time to.
This is great discussion, and it seems AI is the main topic. And with doing that, there are some more questions which I want to post. And I think, Rishi, you answered a little bit, but a question is that with AI coming so much, anyone see anything where on the hardware side where liquid handling companies are applying?
Go ahead, Rishi.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I didn't stop by like different liquid handlers also this year, but I didn't hear anything that somebody is utilizing AI on the deck.
I think it goes back again to what exactly do you mean by AI? Because I could argue that visual guidance, right, and camera positioning on the decks that we've been seeing popping up across the different vendors more and more is a flavor of AI where the instrument is now aware whether a particular labware has been placed in the right location, and there is some inherent error handling, or you can add on the error handling to act on that, right? So to me, that's a little bit of utilizing sort of the next level, right? Automated intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence to help out with the human component.
Mhm. Actually, to that point, I really liked that ASL came up with that servo gripper or the camera there, so that even if your device is sitting few inches off, the nest is off, the camera will still figure it out and put it in place, because that may help us to save a lot of resources to put in to get a docking cart to have a precise location. I mean, if I have like a couple of devices sitting on a regular table card, I could just push it there. It doesn't always has to be precise. In that sense, I think that will be really helpful, because even if the nest is off by 2 millimeter, it cannot, right now the ASL won't be able to put it. And I predominantly use ASL, so I was really excited to see that.
I think from a liquid handling standpoint, you almost have to have, monitoring of the dispense. It's like, I know there's different technologies for different vendors, whether it's like camera-based solutions or pressure-based solutions that let you know that that dispense actually occurred as you intended it. And I think that's kind of an important component of this as well, just from like the liquid handling angle. It's hard to say like if there's like one vendor that's better at that than another, but I think making that easy and implementing it kind of as a first class principle of liquid handling would be kind of a big step forward.
Definitely. The other thing someone mentioned is that we are all talking about AI with instruments, but the basic requirement for AI will be barcoding, because until we don't have barcoding, we cannot track the data. So the prerequisite of AI implementation should be barcoding and easier ways to track barcodes. Do you guys agree with that?
That is 100%. I would say like that is the first thing people have to start doing like yesterday, to be, even if you want to use AI, your data should be fair. Like, so even if you don't need AI, I would say like one should start exploring. That's where you're gonna see like how, if we are collecting the data, it's not in the right format, it's not fair, it's not annotated right, and you have to spend a lot of time to prepare the data to use AI, and you may not want to spend that much of time, but this is how you learn once you want to have a project with AI, and then you could modify the way you are collecting the data. The first thing is definitely to add barcode to every sample or every labware. Yep.
Yeah, great save, Rishi. I think with this, let's switch a little bit from AI to some other topics. And while it's similar to AI, but what some of you guys mentioned about the sensors and camera to monitor or troubleshoot bulk dispensing or pipetting, can some of you name any software or any companies which you are using or you saw are doing that?
There's some single cell dispensing companies that are doing some really interesting things with imaging, where like they image a cell that comes through, I guess they kind of increment the dispense until they see, a potential cell, they image it, they compare it against some parameters and they eject it. What is that? And then, like the Echo and what is it, the IDOT? I think they have, vision tracking for, each droplet that comes across. The dynamic devices, Lynx has a VVP head, Hamilton has total air aspiration dispense monitoring. So there's just kind of different technologies of different ways to measure those things, and kind of depends on whether you're throwing a droplet with a sound wave or a dispense mechanism or something else.
Yeah, even like in that sense, for cell sorter, I saw a REMI from Deep Cell, which was like it also assess the cell morphology as a sort strategy and the images. I feel like that could be also cool somewhere if somebody's in antibody production, like you sort of different morphologies of the cells, and then it could be related to how the antibody production is happening. So I think that was also pretty cool in this sense.
We also had as a topic idea when we were talking about this beforehand about the liquid verification, just a lot of the new volume verification devices out there. Curious to see your guys' take on those. I mean, I saw quite a few. It seemed to be a new trend area where there's standalone products geared just towards this. I haven't personally deployed any of those yet, but we were certainly looking at them. I don't know. Anybody bought any yet?
I
About
haven't.
volume check. Sorry, go ahead, Olga.
Good for you. No. It's something that we've been always looking into, right? Volume check has been around for quite some time. Many-Sense came out not too long ago. I think sometimes it's, at least in my experience, it's been difficult to justify the expense, right? Everybody understands that you need to have an accurate inventory, but at the same time, when push comes to shove, $20, $30, $40,000 doesn't seem to be, no one has the appetite for it. Sometimes it's also, how do I actually incorporate this into my workflow, right? So if you're measuring tubes, the last thing that I want to do is decap my tubes to be able to measure that volume, right? So there's a little bit of a process hindrance as well in some of these devices, but would love to have an accurate inventory of the liquid levels in all the different labware types.
Yeah, but there was one this year that I saw in this series which really stood out. It's Lumina from Liquimetrics, and they were actually the SLAS award winner for like new technology. It could measure volume not just in 384. It could also measure in 1536 well plates, and that too at sub-microliter precision. For example, in 1536 well plate, it could read in 60 seconds with 15 nanoliter accuracy. I think that was pretty impressive.
Do you know what, I mean, my objection or my hesitation just comes back to what Olga said. I mean, with the price on these is sometimes hard. Like, do you know what the ballpark was on something like that?
So for that one, I don't remember, but volume check, I wonder if it was around like 60K or 40 to 60K, but it wasn't easy for me to get like, it was like, oh, do you need that, or should we just buy a couple of extra plate sealers, but eventually it felt like we would like use it, so we bought it, but I'm not using it 100% as there are less automation engineers compared to scientists, and we are always behind on things, so I'm catching up with there to utilize in our like day-to-day process. But we have started using for volume verification things like instead of having a proper method, just have one method. You dispense the liquid, run it through the volume check, and the full head is working or the channels are working.
Actually, what I wanted to add a little bit on a different, similar conversation, but a little bit of a different track volume-wise. I don't know if you guys had a chance to, when you were at the Hamilton booth, if you had a chance to talk to them about their VariPlate. Super excited about that. I think it's something that we needed for a long time. Again, inexpensive, easy to use, quick volume check, right? What I would love to see is for them to push it just a little bit further and utilize a similar concept, but to enable an even faster iterative cycle for liquid handling optimization, right? So they have the LVK, right? That's gravimetric. It still takes a little bit of time, and it's not always the best tool for what we're trying to do. But I think the VariPlate has that potential and could do it very quickly and in a very affordable fashion. It's going to definitely, once it's out on the market, it will definitely save my team hours and hours of GC time.
And they are, it's for channels right now. I think they are also working for the head, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I agree. That was pretty cool.
We've also talked about lowering the volume as well, because I think right now it's only down to 5 microliters. We operate in that
Mhm.
space pretty robustly.
Okay.
2
Uh-huh.
microliters. I would love to see that. I'd love a little bit more help in the lower range.
Mhm. I'll prefer higher volume range for me.
I think they have that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely volume verification or volume measurement is something we all look around, and it's a very hard decision to justify the money. But I think more and more companies, as we just talk about liquimetrics, and in the chat, someone posted that it costs around 120K just for
Mhm.
people knowledge. And then we have RTEL for a long time, which is around 80K. And then the new company like Maniscence is around 70K. So there are companies, it will be great to have some product which are a little cheaper so that we can do it faster. But this is definitely something to keep in mind. And at the same time, it's people use it in lab also. Like we want to make sure that pipetting is accurate. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting topic.
So I think the Hamilton starter kit is around 2,500 and maybe it's around 50 per plate. So I think it's, as Olga said, like much more affordable.
Okay, yeah,
And
so
then in comparison, like there was also Check It Go, which is, kind of straightforward. You dispense the liquid there, you flip the thing, and it will fill the capillary. I don't know if others saw Check It Go, like they were there last year too.
I'd like to throw another couple of things in there. I think you buy a 250K liquid handler, and has capacitance detection or some other feature that if you need to be able to tell whether there's 100 microliter difference in a tube or just sample in there at all. I feel like you can kind of utilize some of the other tools on the the platform that you have to be creative to kind of get that information back like as you're executing it. And maybe it seems like the footprint for these things is pretty big for what it's doing. It seems like that might be able to be shrunk. Like if you can read a plate on the deck, with some new technologies, it seems like this could be something that could have a much smaller footprint in the deck of a liquid handler, or integrated in a fashion that's kind of more seamless without requiring kind of dedicated transportation and kind of all the things that come with a device.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe something like bio-noise absorbance or something you could just put on the deck and prepare your plate and quickly read it. It reads all 96 at the same time. Or if it is Hamilton, you can even buy their fluoro eye that they just have like just for measurement purposes.
I guess the question then becomes, at what point in your workflow are you measuring the volumes, right? Because I'd argue by the time you're on the deck, you can verify, right? Just to reconfirm. But at that point, it's too late, right? Your reagents are out, your samples are all thawed. You better be ready to roll. So that I think also ties into the footprint.
Yeah. So this will be more like QCing it like beforehand, and then keep your fingers crossed. Yeah.
Okay, guys, it seems we have a good discussion on that. Some questions came about new product award. So as SLS always do a new product award, and people are asking, did you see something which impressed you, or did you see something which was you were not expecting? Did anyone saw something which they think was extraordinary, especially in the new product award area?
I mean, I think there was one talk at a conference I heard was the trisonic acoustic dispenser, right? Like, let's talk about that one. I'm curious to get the panel's thought. I mean, it's what, an echo killer for 120K or something along those lines, that essentially should be doing what the echo can do for 3x that price. Now, it's not a working prototype yet. I think it was pretty new. But I think that was the new one that almost everybody I talked to had said, like, hey, did you see this? What do you think? What's your take on it? And so I'd love to get this group's thought on, are you signed up for the beta? Do you think it's Danaher's legal department's going to have an issue with it? I'm kind of curious with everybody's take.
There's a lot of questions in there. I would look at it as competition, right? And additional options out there. Footprint, amazing, right? So, but as you said, Bob, early days, right? So you really need to go into this eyes open. If you have the budget, you have the time to tinker with it. Sounds like a really interesting potential. because I think there is a patent expiration that's at play, right, on the Echo. I was personally upset when we saw ATS being sunsetted, right? They're not software-wise and hardware-wise. Hardware-wise, they might be comparable or were comparable. On the cost and on the software, they were very different beasts. So I love what TriSense is doing. For me, it's gonna be a wait and see, just because I'm running production labs, right? So I cannot afford sort of a tinkering environment, nor do I have the budget for it. But man, I wish I could.
Yeah. And I mean, just to provide, like, I don't know that everybody knows the whole story, but ATS was the other acoustic dispenser out there for a while. And Danaher just kind of bought that also and then just shelved it, right? So that there was a bit of a monopoly left in this field. And so it's, yeah, it'll be interesting to get another player in there.
I think the honors are same as UK Robotics, right? Like D2 dispenser, and with the price point, it looks like D2 dispenser is almost 1/3 the price of the Mantis to do the same job. So it looks like they are being consistent with 1/3 of the price. For D2 dispenser, I did had a test it out. Definitely, it does very similar. It works similarly, but then for the user perspective, it adds on more work because you have to use pressurized bottle, you need to have air and all that. With Mantis, it will be like easy to maintain, but then again, it's 3 times the price. So there are those things. I wonder if with this product, it could be similar things that it would do the same thing, but maybe there is more work on the user's end, but it will make it more affordable for people to have it. I don't even have Echo yet. I do not need it as of right now. So I don't have that much experience with Echo, but I have talked with them to look into it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing, Bob, that I wanted to mention as part of this discussion is, as much as we're always excited about something new, right? And we always have our eyes open. To me, sometimes the primary consideration is the company that's behind the product, right? How long have they been around? How secure are they? Do they have service apps, what have you behind? Because even I would rather have a subpar product, but a solid company behind it, right? To stand behind their product and to support you throughout your challenges, because nothing works, right out of the box. First iteration of, right? I think we all know how, well, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but, first off, if you think about automotive industry, right? You kind of want for those wheels to be greased just a little bit. So, that's a little bit of a concern there. And I don't want to switch the gears too far, but, to go to some of the earlier conversations about cell culture, there's some movement, there's some changes happening, and it's great to see new players come online. But how long is it going to be before I can commit to that product and know that it's going to be production ready, right? For live lab, for a clinical lab. The bar is very different, right? Between R&D environment and clinical labs.
Yep. So
I would, Rishi here, one second. I tend to agree, but I'll also just push back a bit on that, in that we need new players. And so I think we need to support them. So I really think that especially Kelpesh with his Moderna budget should be testing these out for us.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So, but I think we can't sit back and complain about subpar products with big sales forces behind them if we're not willing to take a chance on the new guy on the block that's got the back booth at SLAS. Like, those are the ones I get excited about, and I'm willing to take the lumps if those things don't work for a little bit. If it's going to push the big players at the front that have had the same logo or the same display for the last 7 years to actually innovate on some of the stuff that they're doing. So it is a balance, and I understand you're in a clinical area, and so some of the stuff has to be buttoned tight for what you're doing. But for those of us that can take a little bit more risk in some of these fields, I think it's important to pepper that into our strategies to make sure that we are supporting the new players, the new SLAS winners, and bring them in and allow to take the lumps with them, just so it helps push our field forward a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, on that same, Olga
I
was
think I
talking.
agree with both of you.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I just want to mention a couple of products also, like it's from the same vein. Yeah, like I agree with both of you, and I think we should have Kalpesh test it out for all of us. And then since we were talking about like something like cool, what else we saw? I really like Pixel by Cytotronics there, which was another award winner. It's just amazing to see how like technologies are working. Like it use scanning of all the cells, basically your culture with array of electrodes just beneath the culture, so you have continuous data on your cells. And then another thing I really liked was again, things I may not use, Cell Voyager from Yokogawa, which is under development for this thing, which is for high content screening, and they could actually sample the subcellular stuff from the cell. They could go within the cell and pick up the things from there. So I think these were really advanced. Another thing I saw last year too was QES platform, which is quantum electrochemical spectroscopy from Probius, and they are using like atomic level vibrations that they are exploiting to characterize the molecule and make a digital twin of that. It only uses like 4 microliter, and the size of the equipment is same as a binoise absorbance 96. So all those like really micro scale technology is I get excited to see, but nothing that I would actually like need it.
So, guys,
Can we go, Will? I wanted to get your take on that. I'm sorry, Will. You had something to
yeah,
say, and we.
okay, yeah, go ahead with.
So like, Olga's talking about how, it's hard to take a risk, on a new device, because you don't want to do, all of the kind of groundwork to figure out if it works. Maybe you talk to somebody at an event, but we kind of opened this talking about like how nice it was to like have a community there to see that. And it seems like there's a big opportunity there to kind of help each other out, to like, publish feedback and to, give feedback on a device that's like accessible to others. It's like, it's not like, it's going to be the make or break for, a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company. Like that's just data that helps us do our jobs better. So I think maybe shifting the like
Great idea.
pushing
Yeah,
it to it's like we should just do it for like all of us on anything that we're using. It seems like.
No, I agree with that. Some of the things that I tested ended up buying it. For example, Blue Washer, it was newer. I tested it. It really helps. I bought it. And then this year, I'm the first customer to buy FlexPod. It is like plug and play robotic arm. I'm buying it. And then there are only 2 companies for cell culture incubator, which has 25 millimeter diameter. One is like Thermo had Cytomite that they released last year. And this year, Kuhner was showing their demo unit there, and I got a beta unit from Kuhner, because scientists really want to see their cells growing at a 25 mm diameter, not like 1 or 3 mm amplitude diameter to shake their cells. But yeah, trying it out, and then it is helping to buy it. It's like both like bigger companies and smaller companies. I don't think it really matters that much. It's more about how much time you could invest in.
Kalpesh,
So,
I
guys,
see you're itching to cut us
yes,
off. But if I can
I'm
just get this in, I
sure.
want to build on what Will is saying, because this community is growing, and it would be great to share our experiences. But just as much as we can leverage it sort of internally, right, on the customer side, I think there's also a lot of benefit for the feedback that we can provide to the vendors, because that is what allows their products to get better and to help us out, right? I love that, Will. Yeah, kind of a collective resource, or expense sharing, if you want to look at it that way.
This is a great discussion, guys. And me, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's only 5 to 10 more minutes left. And I think one topic which I really want to bring it up is transportation. We see a lot of transportations of material. And is there any thought from each one of you? And if you guys can keep it short for 5 minutes to 7 minutes, that will be great. Will, you want to start?
Yeah. Like one thing that just absolutely blew my mind was there's like that X-planer, platform to move plates around with like, discs, but it had a Z-axis, which just absolutely blew my mind. So like, there's plates that are rotating in different like directions, and like there's tilting, they're spinning, and like, I took a picture of some Q instrument devices, like a tilt module. I thought it was interesting because it went both ways. And then there was a rotating, like a turntable in the back. And from there, I walked over to the X-planar thing. I didn't realize they had a Z-axis, but they had literally the exact same thing. There's a plate that's tilting, there's a plate that's rotating, and then it feels like just that Z-axis just provides like such an interesting aspect to transportation, because it lets you lift a plate up and hand it off. It lets you maybe pick a plate up to a vacuum to take a lid off, and it's just like it seems like there's some really crazy opportunities to make some really interesting solutions based on that technology.
Yeah, I think that one is, I remember seeing it last year, and then this year I think it's made a bigger splash, and I'm hearing some people that are getting it and deploying it. I don't know, I sound like the cost conscious person on the panel today, but
that was me.
Yeah, exactly. But between, I don't know, maybe we're getting old, but we're the ones more worried about the price of everything.
Hey.
But if you're traveling long distances, I worry about the add up cost, right? Because the unit economics on that thing is the cost of the panel, the 12-inch by 12-inch. So the more of those you're buying is kind of where your cost is, as opposed to some of the other transport layers where your unit economics might be in the transport itself, and then distance doesn't necessarily matter if it's just or it's somewhere in the middle on like the track systems, right? So I think each one will have its place. I think we'll probably see that deployed in some like smaller integrated systems that could really offer some cool flexibility. And I agree, the X or the Z axis on that is pretty interesting. But for larger systems, I worry it might be cost prohibitive until the like economy of scale get there, where maybe that cost comes down at some point. But and so the other side of it is the Roombas with the precise arm on top, right? The mobile robots. So like that's the other side of it, where that you're looking at what, 300K, 250 to 400K, depending on what vendor you're looking at for that thing. But it's got a different value proposition to it too. So I don't know, Olga, I don't know if you have a thought on that one, or Rishi, as you're looking at that.
You hit the nail on the head, because I was going to say, instead of sort of connecting these systems in a linear fashion, right? Maybe it ends up being dollar for dollar, same investment, right? But using the mobile robots to interconnect your systems that are kind of spread across multiple floors. I think some people will struggle with utility, right? It could be a lot more economical for a human to just walk from one system to the other. But then my argument is always, well, what about the weekends? What about the holidays? What about the overnight operation, right? Staffing your lab with third shift can be extremely expensive. So a mobile robot, as expensive as it might be today, might actually turn out to be a pretty good investment longer term, right? But a little bit on a different flavor. For those of you that know me, I love the concept of vertical integration. And I still think that we're really underutilizing that space, right? And Bob, you've done some work with Formulatrix on that. Stepping stone, right? So far, it's still one plate at a time. And we had a conversation at that SLAS. What if it's a stack of plates, right? Can you figure out a stacker that's being transported sort of in that layer that's way above where the humans are? It might not be applicable to everybody, right? It really depends on the geography and what your lab looks like. But everywhere I've been, I've got huge ceilings, and 50% of that space is completely empty, right? So what can we do better on that transport layer?
The high-res recursion one is kind of cool with that. It's the track system, but up on stilts, kind of some iteration.
Yeah. So what happens if something happens up above, right? That's always the stilts, right?
You send a tow truck there. I was also like, I was also thinking on like to utilize drones, and but then I also saw people are actually testing it out, so that was nice to see. But also, like, especially within the campus, if you're moving plates between different buildings, I think that that would be a much better option than using like AMRs to. Maybe it will be cheaper, much cheaper to use drones versus things on the floor.
I also love how our plate sealers won't seal all the wells, but we're going to throw these things on drones. But okay, yeah, we'll see.
But it needs to start somewhere. But
Yeah.
another second thing I need is like, say if something happened at 10 p.m. and just plate is not sitting right, and as we were saying, like the vision system could help, or do I need like a glove at home, like with a sensor? One of my person mentioned, oh, he wants to build that. I'm like, that'll be great. Sometimes it's just the plate just need to be adjusted. So right now, if something is off, I'm stuck. Like I have to drive half an hour to work to fix that little bit thing, which I normally don't have to, but you do get here and there those cases, or just having AMR like with sense that you could remotely fix those things.
There's in semiconductor manufacturing, they do a lot of kind of vertical transports like off the ceiling and they drop down. So I mean, it seems like definitely an interesting proposal, and you just have like one axis to move the plate, which is interesting as far as like liquids being in there.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't seem so far-fetched because like right now like there's multiple biotech companies with market caps 5 times what Intel's is. Like it seems like
it's done in other industries. It's just for a multitude of reasons we're not quite there yet, and it's something to explore.
We are not there yet, just in US or in general in our industry?
I can only speak honestly for the Boston
Oh,
area.
yes,
I
okay.
can't even speak for the New York or the West Coast, right? Because I can only
no,
speak.
because I heard like maybe in Europe they are using more vertical space than we are
I
using
have
in
heard
US.
that. We had this conversation and
Right.
Thurman mentioned that they have a product
Right.
line. So then the question is, well, if it's available to Europe, how come we're not talking about it in the US, right? What's the difference?
Yeah.
Or why?
seems like the cost for space in Boston is probably comparable to Europe's most populated cities as well.
Again, being the bad person here. I want to.
You got a tough job.
Yeah, means especially with all the great discussion you guys are doing. I think with this it's already 12:58. So with that, I will like to wrap this up by saying thank you to all of our panelists for their valuable insight and great audience, because they put so many different questions and discussion points in there, which is great to see. And with so much advancement on the horizon, it seems that it will be a great year. With that, again, I want to thank all the attendees and panelists and hope to see you at our next event. And really sorry if we didn't able to answer your questions. There were a lot of questions to answer and it was difficult to manage. With that, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.